When you think of Captain America, you probably picture the strong, noble leader, shield in hand, unshakable, charging head first into battle. But that's not where his story started. Before the serum, before the costume, before the legend, he was just Steve Rogers. Small, sickly, picked last, the kind of guy that people overlooked in a crowd. By every standard society had, Steve was a failure. And if he had accepted what the world told him he should be, he'd still be invisible. And that's the dangerous thing about the word should. It sounds like responsibility, it sounds like good advice, but really it's a trap. The same one keeping most people small, safe, and suffocating right now. And maybe that's a trap you're in right now too. Should is the word that keeps people stuck in lives they don't want, playing roles they never chose. It's the script society hands you at birth. You should get good grades. You should land a safe job. You should settle down, get married, have kids, buy the house. None of those things are bad, but here's the trap. The moment should becomes your compass, you lose your own. Because should doesn't ask who you are. It doesn't ask you what matters to you. It only asks, will you fit the mold? And the interesting thing is, the moment you stop living by should is the moment your real life actually begins. But most people never get that far because should feels safe, and safe is where dreams go to die. Now let's sit with that. Because if you're honest, how much of your life right now has been built on should? Maybe you're in a job that drains you. Not because you love it, but it's because it's what you should do to be responsible. Maybe you're in a relationship where you keep shrinking yourself because you think you should just be grateful that someone's there. Or maybe you wake up every day already tired, not from a lack of sleep, but from carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. That's the weight of should. It feels like obligation, but really it's quiet suffocation. And let's be real, it's exhausting because you're living by should. No matter what you do, somebody's disappointed. Your boss, your family, your friends, and most of all, you. A little voice inside that says, this isn't it, I'm meant for more than this. And yet every time that voice rises, should shuts it down. You can't take that risk, you can't disappoint them, you can't want more. So you settle, you play small, you stay invisible. Should isn't responsibility, it's conditioning. It's the hand-me-down script society gives you to keep you predictable, safe, and easy to control. But your life isn't a group project. You don't get graded in how well you follow the script. You get remembered for the moments you broke it. Steve Rogers didn't become Captain America by following the rules of what a scrawny kid should do. He became a legend because he broke them. And here's a challenge for you, small but uncomfortable. Pick one thing in your life this week that you're only doing because you think you should. It could be saying yes to an invite that you don't want. It could be forcing yourself through a habit that drains you instead of fuels you. It could be holding back an opinion just to keep the peace. Now, for just 1 week, don't do it. Notice how it feels. Notice the fear, the guilt, the discomfort, but also notice the space it creates. Because in that space, that's where you begin to breathe again. Most people aren't who they are, or who they had to be. The overachiever who learned early that love only came with performance. The peacemaker who kept the family from falling apart by never rocking the boat. The tough one who wore armour because show weakness was never an option. These roles feel like you, but they're not you. They're survival. And the truth, survival isn't living. Think about it. How many of your current behaviours are actual survival strategies you picked up decades ago? The constant need to prove yourself at work, that's a kid desperate to finally be seen. The fear of saying no because people might leave, that's a teenager terrified of rejection. That inability to ask for help, that's the child who learned nobody was coming. And the really scary part is these survival strategies work. That's why you're still here. But now they're the very things keep you from moving forward because this survival tactic no longer suits you and is no longer needed. The roles you had to play to survive are not the roles you need to thrive. Yep, I made it right on purpose. Steve Rogers could have spent his whole life bitter, angry, proved himself in small ways, but he didn't cling to that mask of weakness. He stepped into the identity he was always meant to claim, and so can you. Despite it being a comic book, it still applies to real life. So grab a piece of paper, at the top, write who I had to be. List 3 traits, habits, or masks you've carried just to get by. Things that aren't really you, they're just armour. Then on the other side, write who I choose to be now, and write the traits that actually match the life you want to build. That's the start of identity work. Not waiting for permission, not asking if you're allowed, but choosing it for yourself. Feeling stuck doesn't mean you're broken. It usually means you've been betraying yourself for far too long. Every time you said yes when you wanted to say no, every time you silenced your truth just to keep the peace, every time you chose the version of you people wanted instead of the one you really are. That's not failure. That's self-betrayal. And the weight of that is why you feel stuck. Here's the thing, betrayal hurts the most when it comes from the person closest to you. And for most people, that person's themselves. You betray yourself when you take on responsibilities that don't belong to you. You betray yourself when you shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. You betray yourself when you keep chasing the version of success that impresses everyone but you. And over time, that betrayal builds a cage. But here's the good news. If you're the one betraying yourself, then you are also the one who can stop. Funny how that works, isn't it? And stuck isn't a problem, it's a signal. It's your soul or your mind pulling the fire alarm and saying, this isn't me, something needs to change. Instead of treating stuckness as weakness, treat it as truth-telling. It's not there to shame you, it's there to give you a shake and wake you up. This week, ask yourself one question before making any decision. Am I betraying myself by saying yes to this? If the answer is yes, pause. You don't have to fix everything today, but even just noticing the betrayal is the first act of loyalty to yourself. One of the biggest lies society feeds you is this: wanting more means you're ungrateful. So you settle, you keep quiet, you tell yourself you should be happy with what you've got. But let's be honest, that voice in your head that whispers, there has to be more than this, that's not greed, that's truth. And wanting more doesn't mean you're ungrateful, it means you're alive. I want you to think about this. How many times in your life have you swallowed the words, I want, because you didn't want to seem selfish? Maybe you stayed in a relationship because leaving would disappoint everyone else. Maybe you stayed in a job because the paycheck was good enough. Maybe you've been telling yourself for years, I should just be happy with what I have. Because we're taught at a young age, we don't ask for want, we just say what we'd like. And want becomes a bad word. And sure, gratitude matters. Gratitude doesn't mean settling for a half life. Gratitude is about appreciating the ground that you're standing on. Ambition is about realising there's still a mountain to climb. They're not enemies, they're partners, but we are taught to separate them. And society doesn't want ambitious, awakened people, it wants obedient ones. So it labels your hunger as greed, it calls your desire selfish, it tells you that you wanting more makes you ungrateful. And over time, you learn to silence the part of you that dreams. Now, desire isn't the enemy, it's the compass. That whisper inside of you that's craving for more, that's not a flaw to suppress, it's a signal to follow. Steve Rogers didn't want the serum because he hated who he was. He wanted it because deep down, he knew he was meant to serve at a higher level. Your hunger is proof that you're built for more than survival. This isn't the caveman days, we don't just have to survive anymore. Now we can thrive. This week, give yourself permission to say out loud, I want more. Write it down, say it to yourself in the mirror, let it feel uncomfortable, let it feel greedy. Because once you stop shaming yourself for wanting more, you can finally start building it. The reason most people stay stuck isn't lack of opportunity, it's identity. They cling to the story of who they were instead of stepping into who they could become. I'm just not that kind of person. That's not me. Or I can never do that. That's not truth. That's a prison. And the bars are made of your own words. Here's what most people don't realise. Your identity is not fixed. When you repeat the same stories about yourself, you lock yourself into them. I've always been shy, or I'm just not that good with money, or I'll never be disciplined. Does that sound familiar? That's not your personality, that's programming. And the harsh truth is, the moment you defend your limitations, you're also defending your suffering. Steve Rogers didn't walk into the lab saying, I'm just a weak kid from Brooklyn, so I'll always be a weak kid from Brooklyn. He believed in the possibility of more. He stepped into a growth identity before the serum ever hit his veins. And that belief, that's what transformed him. The story you tell yourself about who you are is the ceiling on your growth. If you're not fixed, you're not stuck with your past, you're not doomed to repeat who you were yesterday. Your identity is a choice, and the second you realise that, you've broken the bars of that prison you created. So here's what to do. Write down one sentence you've been using as an excuse for staying small. Something like, I'm not confident, I'm too old to change, I'll never have discipline, that's never meant for me. Now rewrite it into, I am becoming confident, I am learning discipline, I am building strength, I will become that person, I will be that way. It might feel fake at first, but repetition creates belief, and belief creates identity. Just want to take a quick second to say, if this has landed for you so far and you're realising you've been trapped in shoulds that are outdated, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the more we spread this message, the more people pull out of that should trap. Here's the real reason most people don't step into life they want. It's not fear of failure, it's fear of being seen. Because once you step out of the shadows, people notice, they judge, they whisper, they wait for you to slip up. And that pressure, for most, it's scarier than falling flat on their face. Think about it. Failing in private is safe. No one knows, no one laughs, no one points a finger, but the moment you start showing up, whether it's speaking your truth online, launching that business, leaving the job, or walking away from a toxic relationship, you risk exposure. Suddenly, people have opinions. Your family doesn't understand. Your friends question you. Strangers online think they know your life better than you do, despite only seeing a 5-second clip of it. I know, pathetic, isn't it? And so, to avoid the discomfort of being seen, most people shrink back. They hide. They pretend they don't want it. And that's how they betray themselves. The fear of being seen is proof you're stepping onto a bigger stage. Visibility isn't danger, it's growth. Judgment isn't a threat, it's a sign you've stopped blending in. Steve Rogers didn't just face bullets as Captain America, he faced the weight of millions watching him, questioning him, doubting him. That didn't make him smaller, it made him sharper. This week, practice being seen. Post the opinion you've been scared to share. Speak up in a meeting where you would normally have just stayed quiet. Tell one person in your life about the thing you secretly want. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be visible. Because every time you allow yourself to be seen, the fear loses power. And here's the truth that no one wants to hear. You don't find yourself, you forge yourself. Waiting for life to reveal who you are keeps you stuck in limbo. The breakthrough comes the day you decide, this is who I choose to be. Identity isn't discovered, it's built. Too many people waste years searching for themselves, like there's some lost version of them hiding in the dark. I know because I did it. But you're not lost, you're unmade. And being unmade isn't weakness, it's opportunity. Because what's unmade can be reforged. Every scar, every failure, every should you've lived under, those aren't chains, they're raw material. And when you choose to reforge yourself, you don't erase the past, you weaponize it. You are not who life says you are. You are who you decide to become. The shoulds you've been living under, they are not destiny, they're scripts. And scripts can be rewritten. Steve Rogers didn't become Captain America by accident. He chose courage. He chose service. He chose to embody something greater than his circumstances, and so can you. Here's your challenge. Write down the person you've been acting as, the scripted version of you. Then a separate page, write down the person you want to become. Not goals, not achievements, identity. I am disciplined. I am courageous. I am a leader. Start living from that page now, not when you feel ready, now. Because identity isn't found, it's forged in the choices that you make today. So if this hit home for you, if you're tired of living under shoulds and you're ready to actually step into who you're meant to be, I want you to know something. You don't have to do this alone. That's why I built the clan. It's my private membership community where every single week we run hot seat and coaching calls, we have real conversations, real breakthroughs. You get direct support and the kind of clarity you can't always find on your own, especially when you're making these changes. So if you're serious about breaking out of the shoulds and forging the life that you know you're capable of, then check the link in the description and join us inside the clan. Because you don't need another should. You need a space where you can finally take ownership of your next chapter. And just remember this, you don't find yourself, you forge yourself. And that forging starts now.